Good morning on this sunny day after a couple of snow days here in Albuquerque. Today we are going to hear a little bit of a lesson on a new playlist. In our world, we listen to a lot of playlists as they were invented in our technology-related society, but we really need to listen to a new playlist, which maybe is an old playlist, the playlist that Jesus Christ sends us. So today I'd like to talk about the playlist, Do Not Be Afraid. Have you ever been afraid, like really afraid? I haven't specifically, but I do know of a case that I was involved in with a coworker of mine. He was the #1 salesperson in our company across the nation. Wade was an excellent salesperson, and so subsequently, he did get a promotion to manager, a regional sales manager, and he was so excited. And so we met in Florida at a hotel so that we could get started with his new assignment. Wade and I were going to meet in the breakfast room the morning after we arrived to plan our day, and he didn't show up. So I went to the desk and I asked for his room number and headed upstairs to go check on Wade because he wasn't answering his cell phone either. As the elevator doors opened, a gurney came out with EMTs, and I looked to the right and the medical emergency vehicles were outside of the hotel. As those doors opened and I saw this, I stepped back and I saw Wade on the gurney. So I trotted along with them, and the EMT said, "Hop in the ambulance," when I told them that I was his boss and we were from out of town. His heart was racing, he couldn't breathe, they had him on oxygen, and we rushed to the emergency room. They called me into his room a little bit later and said everything was okay. So I asked, and Wade had a panic attack that manifested itself into the symptoms of a heart attack. And why was that? I asked Wade, "What are you thinking? What's going on?" And he said, "I'm so afraid. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be successful." This is an extreme example of how anxiety can affect us. Over and over, the messages in our culture's playlist ring loud and clear above all the others. It is simple and it's powerful. Be afraid. Be afraid of the stock market because it will surely crash. Be afraid of the government. It doesn't have our best interests in heart. Be afraid of who will be elected president because either way, in times of COVID, there is too much uncertainty. Be afraid you will not have enough money in retirement, that COVID vaccines won't work, that there are toxins in the air, global warming, other religions, large public gatherings, maybe even afraid to go to church. But people of God have a different playlist, and do you know what it is? You want to guess? Our culture is not the only one with a repeat message. God's message is repeated too. And what is it? Don't be afraid. The first time God said it in the Bible was to an old man who thought his life had passed him by. The man's name was Abram. He was approaching triple-digit age and had no kids. And God greeted him one day and said, "Exalted Father, do not be afraid." And God changed the world through this man. God kept saying this throughout the Bible. He said it to Joseph's brothers when they feared death during a famine. God said it to Moses when he led a bunch of escaped slaves who faced an army on one side and the Red Sea on the other. Throughout the Old Testament, it was said through David, Samuel, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Joel, and Zephaniah, and oh yeah, Haggai too. Do not be afraid was the playlist of the Old Testament. Just think about Abram who became Father Abraham. He had many children, and we can trace our history back to him. And moving to the New Testament, what about Mary? God's messenger said to the teenage Mary, what did they say? "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God." This phrase changed the way they looked at things. If you open your eyes and ears and heart to the phrase, "Do not be afraid," how would it change the way you see yourself? This phrase is a legacy changer. People living in fear have one legacy, and people living with courage from God have another. God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and self-discipline. Understanding these things can change what we leave behind and what we see ahead. How many times do the words "do not be afraid" or "fear not" appear in the Bible? 365 times. Yes, there is one message for us for each day of the year. Do you hear it? Do you hear the phrase, "Do not be afraid"? Amen.
Join Reverend Salazar on Sunday afternoons in November at 1 p.m. on Zoom as she explores connecting the gospel and prayer practices. For more information, please contact Susan Ideas in the church office. Thanks. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the ministry here at Christ United Methodist Church, please consider sending a check to Christ UMC at 6200 Gibson Boulevard, Southeast Albuquerque.